Okay, let's talk about the NBA All-Star Game. I don't have a lot to say, but I watched it, and I think that is important to note. When I say I watched it, I want to take that with a grain of salt. First of all, shout out Pascal Siakam again, 4 points, only pacer in there. That was fun to watch. He was fun to see. I enjoyed Zach Edey as well, lifelong Purdue fan. Enjoyed Trace Jackson Davis. But just some background, right? I say take this with a grain of salt. I was watching at the same time. I ignored SNL just because I didn't really care. Um, I was a massive NASCAR fan growing up. So I watched the Daytona 500 as I usually do most years just because I miss football and I want something. And the Daytona 500 is always fun and interesting, and it was again. I had the Daytona 500 on the TV. I had the NBA All-Star Game on my phone. And I was really interested, honestly, to see which one captured my attention more. It ended up being the Daytona 500. That ended up capturing my attention far more than the NBA All-Star Game did. I kept going back to the NBA All-Star Game. I kept it on most of the time. But the Daytona 500 was what I wanted to watch. And that makes sense, right? Because the Daytona 500 is kind of the best race of the year in NASCAR, even more than the championship race. I don't pay attention to NASCAR like I do the NBA, but still, the Daytona 500, bigger spectacle, real game, right? Real event, real results that mean something to a championship chase or championship race, perhaps. Pun intended, we'll say. There was the Daytona 500 took my attention, but I did watch the NBA All Star Game. I did have it on. There was some defensive effort, some hands up, some low stances, right? Guys were bending their knees, which we didn't exactly see last season. But it still felt fake to me, and like a deep three shootout, unless there was an open lane, in which case it's an uncontested dunk. That's what it felt like to me. It had a few good moments, but it wasn't really all that great. I didn't really care all that much. From an entertainment perspective, Kevin Hart was a joy. I liked the smack talk between general managers on the broadcast. That was fun. Kenny and Chuck and Candace and Shaq, right? That was fun. So the NBA All-Star Game, from an entertainment perspective, there were good moments. I thought the Mr. Beast gimmick was cool because he made the shot, but I didn't really understand why Mr. Beast was there. Things like that, right? Kevin Hart was a joy, but it felt gimmicky. It felt like they were really trying to force this entertainment onto us, and I just wanted to watch NASCAR because it felt like the people playing or racing in NASCAR, broadcasting in NASCAR, cared about the NASCAR, right? The NBA All-Star Game, everyone knows that the players don't care. Nobody cares. The fans in the building didn't really care. It wasn't a big deal. But NASCAR was fun because it's a Daytona 500 and everyone's trying to win, right? And so it was competitive, it was fun, it was interesting. I watched that. Probably won't watch a single other NASCAR race all year long, but I watched that, right? Because it's the Daytona 500, and that was far more entertaining than the NBA All-Star Game. And it was, I guess, unfortunate for the NBA that the Daytona 500 got delayed because I got to watch that instead of the NBA. Regardless, the conversation I'm hearing right now is the question of whether or not we should make it into a USA versus World game. This potentially puts more pride on the line. America, theoretically, playing to keep America as considered the number one country, I suppose, basketball country in the world. And guys like Shea get to represent Canada, or wow, I'm losing myself completely. I can't think of another example, but Luka gets to represent his country, right? Jokic gets to represent his country. That's fun. It's interesting. Giannis in Greece is a great example. Guys get to represent the world, right, and sort of the flavors of the rest of the world culturally and in basketball. Maybe that makes more pride on the line. Maybe that allows the players to care more. I think that would be interesting. Another idea for me is that you could incentivize defensive plays. So you could give people bonuses for or whatever, cash bonuses for stealing the basketball, forcing a turnover, blocks, things like that. My thought is that you could truthfully incentivize defense, where you give people money for being successful on defense. And you could do the same with offense, right? Just to keep the whole thing logically fair. But you can give individual players cash bonuses for playing the game defensively. And I would just say that if you gave people bonuses, if you gave people money for how they did on the court on offense and defense, you put an emphasis on the defense, right? You give people more money, you give people more prize for being successful on defense, steals, turnovers, blocks, whatever you want to do. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be interesting. I think it'd make it a little bit more entertaining. And guys, even though they're all rich, they're playing against one another. They're looking to sort of give themselves an opportunity to make a little more. There's a little bit of bragging rights there. I got the $100 that you couldn't get because I blocked your shot. Something along those lines. I think that's fun. That's interesting. That could work. I have no idea if that makes logical sense. Maybe that would play out horribly. In my head, it makes picture perfect sense, but plenty of ideas make picture perfect sense. It's a tongue twister in my head, and they don't actually pan out very well. But that's an idea, right? Incentivize individual playmaking that allows some one-on-one stuff to happen. I think a one-on-one tournament would be great for the NBA All-Star Game as well. Maybe that should just be what we have, just like the NFL has kind of transitioned over to flag football. So that's what I want to see, right? One-on-one tournament, maybe USA versus the World Game. Maybe you're incentivizing regardless. You're incentivizing steals, turnovers financially, right? I think that'd be fun. I think that could be a way to maybe remedy the NBA All-Star Game. I don't think I'll care ever again. If they switch it up, if they do this again, if they do the tournament again, I won't care. I'll pay attention to the voting. I'll pay attention to the teams. I'll kind of laugh about how it's OGs versus young stars, things like that. I won't watch the game because I just don't care. So if they make it USA versus World, maybe I'll care. I'll tune in the second half if it feels like people are playing well in the first. If it's one-on-one, I'll watch for sure. But for the most part, I don't think I'll care about the All-Star Weekend ever again. At least in the with the nature of what it is like now, I don't see myself particularly enjoying it in the future. Kevin Hart was fun. It was interesting. There were some good moments on the floor, especially late in games, some of those game winners. But for the most part, I didn't care, and I was focused on the Daytona 500. And that, I think, is concerning for the NBA. I just really don't know how they fix it outside of those three ideas I brought up. Maybe it's USA versus World. Maybe it's a one-on-one tournament, and maybe it is some method of cash bonuses for defensive success. But the NBA All-Star Game, to me, was not that much better, although it was better. I still don't really care and wasn't overly motivated to continue watching.